Hi guys, happy Sunday with Satan. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? No, it doesn't really. Okay, so today we are going to do The Ancestors. So I completely finished that book. It's just very different, very generic, basic. Your basic. Yeah. So yeah, now I'm doing The Children of Cain, which is a lot more interesting. A lot more. So, okay, working with the ancestors. I love this, so here we go. Okay, so he says, so, who am I talking about when I refer to the ancestors? Obviously, the thing that springs to mind is Grandma and Grandpa and all of their kith and kin. But hopefully we're going back a little further than that. So ancestors is a word that gets thrown around a lot. And he says here, I don't know if everybody really sits and thinks about what they mean when they say it. You guys, this gave me a different viewpoint, a lot different. It's pretty interesting. So we're obviously not just talking about grandparents, great-grandparents, and aunts and uncles, but we're talking about ancestors. We're going a little further back than that and referring to the pre-Christian ancestors who did this sort of thing that we're hoping to basically reconstruct, recreate, and recover whatever phases you want to use for it. So phrases, sorry. So it really is meant to mean your blood ancestors of our race or species. Anyways, so we tend to cast the what is that? The net a little wider. So we'll I can't even read my own writing. So we'll take anybody from way back when who has a nugget of lore or information that they want to share with us. So we're really not that proud when it comes to stuff like that. We'll take it from anywhere. Whatever. Who cares? So ancestors are generally very important parts of traditional crafting. It's probably one of the biggest things that differentiate between traditional craft from Wicca is the focus on ancestral workings. So Gardarian and Alexandria Wicca does have ancestral workings, but they're not as well known or as obvious in most cases. You don't really hear about the ancestors much in Wicca. I mean, you do now that there are more books and blah blah blah. But it's Wiccans basically solely rely on their patron god or goddess or whatever. I don't know. I'm not Wiccan, so I don't know. Okay, so let's see where to go. Okay, so, but they do exist. Okay, so, but ancestral work within the traditional crafting community, if you can call it a community, a bunch of ordinary individuals that I don't know if the word community applies here, but ancestors play a very important part in both the Wheel of the Year, Rites of the Year, and the personal crafting of traditional crafters. So it is important to get your bearings where the ancestors are concerned. So really, they are a very key component of most rituals and of the current of the tradition in general. Very interesting. So obviously, they're seen in some mythic sense as being what is that word? Progenitors of the tradition. So, and probably one of the most obvious signs of ancestral working in a Covenant group will be some sort of stone and some sort of representation of a skull upon the altar at some point. So, he says here on our altar we have a large hearthstone, which I love. I have tons, and we have a pewter skull with Celtic markings sitting on top of that to represent our ancestors. I have quite a few. You guys you can't see the skull. Legion. That's why I named it Legion, for every single ancestor I have from the beginning of time until the end of days. So, where to go? Alright, so he says, I should point out at this point that the use of an altar itself is almost considered blasphemy in some traditional crafting circles. Yeah, it is. But, we happen to have a table that he says I made especially for the purpose of putting stuff on when we're working ritual. So technically it is an altar, but it's more of a work table than a place of worship. A little fly is flying around me. So yeah, that's basically, I'm guilty of having altars, but oh well. So he says here we don't do any bowing of the head and that sort of stuff there. So yeah, no, I don't either. It's basically a workspace, like the desk. Where did I go? Or at least not when anyone's looking. So we call upon the ancestors every time we light the compass. They define the shape and the texture of the crafting we do, and they're largely responsible for channeling the energies for us. We do everything indirectly through the ancestors to a certain extent. So basically they are the seat of your power. True. Very true. And of course, the river of blood, the current of the tradition, is made up from the memories and the energies of our ancestors. Of course, an obvious way that we can use our ancestral connections is in the technique of tapping the bone, which is literally channeling information from the ancestors, memories, lore, mythology, anything that you want. I mean, literally, like recipes. You could channel your grandma for recipes. I did, and it worked, and it was the recipe. Alright, so, or rather, the series of techniques that come under the heading of tapping the bone. So tapping the bone is literally getting information from the ancestors and trying to awaken some of those memories that lie dormant in our genes, in our cellular structure, in our blood and bone, if you like. So it is discussed in detail in the next chapter, so whatever. Recovering the lore is very important. So obviously, despite many grand claims to the contrary, that fly better not be an ancestor. No, I'm kidding. You're not going to find unbroken chain of pagan practices stretching back from modern day right through to pre-Christian Britain. You may find fragments here and there. It's difficult, very difficult. So you may find families that have kept some sort of esoteric practice going without really calling it pagan or, being pagan in any way. So you can take these pieces, these fragments that you can find out from research and from reading and studying. It is really interesting. It really is. So tapping into the ancestral energy and that memory. Literally, that's what I teach in my book, Ouija Pop. When you channel, you are tapping into that current. You are taking a piece of that spark, of that, when you recreate, you start to visualize and see and smell and hear your grandma or an ancestor. That's when they start to impart information and you download it. So it comes in quick bursts. That's what I mean by downloads of information. It's very quick. And sometimes I don't even have time to write it down or anything. So, but it's amazing. Alright, now I don't even know where I went. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, where am I at? Oh, reading and studying. Okay, so from talking to people, from working with people who've done that sort of thing. So, and picking up some hints and tips from them. So, and then you can take that to the ancestors themselves and work on filling in the gaps. So recovering the lost lore, which is what a lot of people do. So basically you can go back with your ancestors and be like, alright, so this is what I found out. This is what I've read. Is this true? They can correct you, and they will. That's for sure. So we tend to reconstruct our traditions rather than inherit them these days. And very true. That doesn't make them any less valid, and it certainly doesn't make them any less potent. But acknowledging the fact does make them a lot more honest. Even if we do have somebody who has sort of valid claims of stuff being handed down through the generations, however long, even they are generally in a situation where they are going to be recovering lore through the tapping of the bone in some way or another. So one of the really interesting things is that, of course, in ritual space, the aim is to step outside of the of time for a while. When you're not in the mundane realm, you're really in the eternal now, where past, present, and future meet. So that makes it completely different. And so one of the concepts that people find a little hard to grasp, but it actually makes perfect sense when you think about it, so think about this, although most people try not to, is that the ancestors aren't just people from the past. We often refer to our ancestors past, and ancestors yet to be. So those who came after us and were also our ancestors. So it helps to not be thinking in too a linear of a fashion. So don't think of it this way in a line. Think of bubbles, think of circles, cyclical, all that. Where'd I go? Okay, so yeah, those who come after us are also our ancestors, so it helps to, I already read that, blah blah blah. Oh, here we go. Luckily, when we're in the middle of our rituals, being linear is generally the hardest thing to do. It is, because you do not know. It's totally different. When you're in your compass, there's really no time. It doesn't feel like time or space. It feels like you're completely somewhere else, and you are. Okay, so you can actually fall into that eternal nowness, the eternal state of becoming, which is so potent and powerful when it comes to working any kind of magic. So of course, in any talk about ancestors, you really can't leave out the oldest of ancestors. Many shamanic, whatever, traditions, and the traditional crafting traditions of the British Isles are no exception here. So think of the gods themselves as being the most ancient ancestors. Think back to archetypes. Really focus on archetypes here. So they see us humans as part, or as being part of that continuous line between the gods and modern man. That's why we always consider that we're all sacred and we all have a divine spark within us. After all, there has to be something of worth within us. Otherwise, why would the ancestors talk to us? That is just, I love that. I love his concept. I love his explanation of working with the ancestors. I love how it's not linear. It's cyclical. So literally within a circle, cyclical. Say you're in there with your ancestors. So you don't have to go backwards in time. It's all happening. The past, present, future, the now, the here, inside your cyclical realm. Well, not really cyclical realm, but when you're thinking more cyclical than linear. I've just confused myself really badly, so, but yeah. I just thought it was really, really interesting, and I want to really go into tapping the bone, and I do want to get into more of possession, which I truly think is channeling. It literally is. I mean, I just guess it's a degree of how close the deity is to you. So it's like when I Ouija and trance out, kind of, in my hands, I can literally see them take on the form of an old woman. I know what's going on. So I don't consider that possession. I consider that literal trance channeling. But that's just how I've always done it. So, alright guys. Yeah, that's pretty much it. What do you guys think? I really want to know what you guys think about this. So, I love you all very much, and I will see you guys tomorrow with all my love, all the way from Venus, all the way back down. I think it's gonna storm. And I will see you guys tomorrow. So I hope you guys have a great day. Please be safe, and I love you guys very much. So yes, I'll see you guys tomorrow.